Hi, my name is Tilon Wimosiri, and this presentation is titled To Pay or Not to Pay. So I'll be focusing on the NCAA, which is the National Collegiate Athletic Association, and it is the governing body of all collegiate sports. It was created in 1906 as a way to construct rules and regulations for football and other college sports. The NCAA is an administrative and legislative organization with respect to overseeing men and women's collegiate sports programs. One of the main significant parts of what the organization does is review eligibility criteria. Regional and national sports competitions fall under its umbrella, and it administers more than 90 national championships for over 24 sports. 1973 was the year in which the divisions were separated into Division 1, 2, and 3. So Division 1 is probably the division that is most popular and most known. There are 179,200 participating student athletes in 351 Division 1 colleges and universities. In terms of athletic scholarships, 59% of students are provided with athletic aid of some degree. The 2017 graduating class, with regards to student athletes, had a graduating rate of 87%. The median undergraduate enrollment for Division I schools is 9,629. The teams per school on average is 19, and about 4% of the student body participates in sports. In Division II, there are 308 colleges and universities, and 121,900 are student athletes. For athletic scholarships for Division II, 62% of students are provided with athletic aid of some degree. The 2017 graduating class with regards to student athletes had a graduating rate of 72%. The median undergraduate enrollment for Division II schools is 2,485. Teams per school is on average 16, and 9% of the student body participates in sports. And lastly, Division III, there are 190,900 participating student athletes in 443 colleges and universities. 80% receive athletic aid of some degree. They have a 87% graduation rate from 2017. The median undergraduate enrollment is 1,748. Teams per school are 18, and 26% participate in sports, which is by far the biggest section of participating student athletes out of all three divisions. Okay, so to begin my topic of research, we'll first look at the athletic scholarships that are given out by each school. People that are unfamiliar with athletic scholarships usually think it's a full ride for everyone and for all 4 years. This is actually, however, not the case. Athletic scholarships are in fact non-guaranteed. The scholarships are utterly up to a coach's analysis and opinion of a player's skill and their perspective. So it literally falls into the hands of a coach's perspective. One athlete could be really skilled, but if the coach's perspective for some reason does not really link up or see any value in that athlete, even though he possesses some great talent, he's not going to get a scholarship. The majority of scholarships only last for a year and must be renewed each year. Another thought to go on this is that since they need to be renewed every year, the amount of time you have that scholarship is very valuable. So if you get injured and you're a star player, top recruit, but you get injured, midway through the season, you're not guaranteed that scholarship the next season. So that's a very big downside. And only the top athletes get full ride scholarships and most of the money. So, not everybody is going to get that full amount. And you really have to be the cream of the crop just to get the full ride and all of the benefits. No scholarships are given to freshmen or sophomores, so this is obviously a problem if you're coming from a family that is having hardships in terms of in the financial area, and you're a freshman athlete in college or a sophomore athlete in college. You can't give anything back because you really have to support yourself, because no scholarships are given to underclassmen because the coaches want you to earn your way for a scholarship. So it's hard living as a college student in general as a student athlete, but it's even more difficult when you are underclassmen. The NCAA also puts a restriction on the number of scholarships a team can provide. Some schools are also very underfunded, so they cannot meet the maximum scholarship quota. So in this case, only the top players will get the scholarship. So you could even be a junior or a senior, and you might not get a scholarship because they don't have enough funds. So only the most elite players will get that scholarship. So another huge disadvantage. So my thesis statement, I believe not paying student athletes for their participation on collegiate teams is causing a negative and detrimental effect in terms of their mental health, economic status, and overall well-being. The NCAA basically just make profits based off of the physical and mental sacrifices made by the student athletes in their respective sports, while those athletes do not see a cent. So they're essentially literally laying their bodies on the line, football, basketball, wrestling, and they're not getting compensated for it, and thus their overall well-being is getting affected in a very negative way. And during the 2017 March Madness, during the 3-week period, the NCAA made close to $900 million, and they also gambled $9.2 billion on the results. This was a very, very standout fact I got from my research. It just shows you how much money not only the colleges make, but also the NCAA make, and yet some colleges are underfunded, and the NCAA could definitely help with those funds just by seeing how much they make year in and year out. If they made $900 million just for a 3-week period, imagine how much they make per year. There's also a hermit lifestyle typically adopted by athletes, and this could lead to depression. Athletes, they're focused on their sport and class, and that literally takes up 24 hours of their day. Sorry, not 24 hours, 20 hours of their day, I would say, very close to that. And then what little free time they have left is for sleeping or studying, and they really can't go out anywhere because they don't have free time. They can't really socialize, so they just hold themselves up in their dorm room and just be in there studying, either sleeping, and this is like a hermit kind of lifestyle, and not going out, not breathing some fresh air, not socializing can be a very depressive instigator, and it could lead to poor mental health. There's also no source of income due to the limited avenues of making money presented to athletes. Again, they can't really have a job. Their time is consumed by class, studying, and then travel, games, practice, film room study, etc., etc. They don't really have time for work. So, what are their avenues of income? They can, during their off season in the summer, they can work a part-time job, and then they have to make that whatever they earn from that job last through an entire academic year. And as I said earlier, there's a risk. The risk of injury is always present, and there is no safety net if an injury does happen to occur. And like with the scholarships, if a star player is injured, there's no guarantee he's going to get that same scholarship next season. So you have to make the most of each year and treat each year as if it's the last year of playing, because it technically is, unless you play well enough and produce excellent results to ensure another scholarship year. So just to give a outlook in terms of how much money a average Division I school would make, I focused on the University of Florida and their 2017-2018 financial period. So some of the figures that stood out were their 2018 ticket sales amounted to close to $32 million. Their 2018 SEC/NCAA distributions went to $45 million. 2018 other contributions was $36 million. Royalties and sponsorships totaled to $19 million. And their total operating revenue, in addition to other profit avenues, got to an amount of $149 million. What was very interesting here is that the contributions value, if the contributions are basically donors, people who have graduated from the University of Florida and want to contribute back to school. Most Division I schools are not underfunded, but there are some Division I schools that are underfunded, depending on the size of the school. If donors and can afford just medium donations or just small donations, it would go a long way. And I think that is very severely lacking in those types of schools that are underfunded. So living hardships, I focused on Dominic Sylvester. He was a former offensive lineman at the University of Alabama, Birmingham. And in one article, he was talking about how he couldn't afford new shoes as they cost $150, and he basically had to use tape and other home remedial sort of supplies, if you will, to keep the shoes from falling apart, and just continue wearing them, because he couldn't even afford any shoes. Scholarships also only cover tuition, books, dorm room, and meal plan. Other expenses are left to the responsibility of the athlete. So, I mean, off the bat, you could say it's good. It covers tuition, books, dorm room, meal plan. But there's way more things to that expenses would go towards. Uber, groceries. You can't always eat cafeteria food. Athletes need a specific diet to enhance their performance. Going on dates, going back to having money for flights to go visit family during the holidays. There's a ton of other expenses that are basically a necessity in terms of having a good quality lifestyle that scholarships do not cover. There's also often a financial disparity between the aid athletics scholarships provide and the actual cost to attend a college. So going off on the previous point, scholarships seem good off the bat, but they don't really provide of what is required to live as a college student. Not even comfortably, but just adequately. According to Dominic Sylvester, the disparity at the University of Alabama, Birmingham was around $3,000. So the scholarship was $3,000 away from actually providing a quality lifestyle for an athlete. $3,000 is a lot of money, and it just tells you how big the disparity is. And University of Alabama, Birmingham is not a very big school. So if the disparity is this big in that type of school, just imagine bigger school, state, the prominent ones, Texas, Florida, Notre Dame, stuff like that, schools like that, the disparity is even bigger. So just to continue on living hardships, also relying on income assistance from your parents is not a solid avenue for most athletes, because first they feel bad taking that money, and second, uh, most do not come from well-off families that those families could afford to pay um, extra allowances. Most of the athletes, their only ride to college was through a scholarship because they can really afford it through normal means. And Dominic Sylvester's parents only work one job. His father is unemployed with a medical disability, so their household income only amounts to $50,000, and obviously they have to use that money for themselves and the betterment of their own lives. The majority of student athletes do not have the gift of free time in order to work a part-time job to earn pocket money, as I was talking about earlier. Their time is dominated by film room study, weight room, travel, game days, practice, treatment, class time, study time, and finally sleep. There's also, as I also mentioned earlier, there are food option issues for athletes. They need a certain level of superior eating options to be in accordance with their performance levels. Many campus cafeterias have junk food that is not suitable before a game or practice, and thus this limits their food options as well. You can't always eat burgers and fries and pizza and stuff like that, which is what most campus cafeterias usually consist of. Athletes need salads, protein, meals of the higher nutritional quality in order to perform well. And the scholarship only covers meal plan for the cafeteria, so they need money to get their own nutritional food, but obviously they're very limited financially, so they can't afford to buy organic options, healthy options, so they need to resort to the cafeteria junk food, which has a domino effect on their performance because they're not eating healthy, and thus has a domino effect on their well-being, and thus has a domino effect on their ability to retain the scholarship and playing and performing well, and it's just a huge snowball. Just a lot of dominoes that fall with just one issue. So there have been plenty of scandals and NCAA scandals with athletes trying to get money, and who can blame them, right? I mean, yes, it's against the rules, and obviously I realize the fact that it is not the best thing to do, but sometimes the situations are they're just dire, most of these athletes don't come from wealthy families, as I said, and they need some sort of income, and they are very handcuffed because they can't go do a part-time job because they need commitment to class and sports. So it's just a very unfortunate situation. One such case was the Cam Newton case. Cam Newton is obviously the current quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, and former Heisman Trophy winner and national champion with Auburn University. In 2010, Newton was at the center of an NCAA investigation regarding problems during his recruitment process. While Newton was still in high school and looking at offers from colleges, his father, Cecil Newton, requested that Mississippi State College provide money in exchange for Newton enrolling at the school. Nine times out of 10, high probability that Cecil knew that income was going to be hard to come by when Newton went off to college because of the tough lifestyle they have to live with all their commitment to the sport and class. So he was trying to get money so that Newton would be comfortable, they would be comfortable, but obviously it was not the best of ideas. Assisting Cecil was Kenny Rogers, a former Mississippi State player who ran a company that helped high school athletes get scholarships. So Rogers and Cecil exchanged a mixture of 275 calls and texts between March 2009 and January 2010. Both individuals met up at least 200 times as the pay for play plan got underway. Newton and Rogers were aiming to ask for an amount between 120,000 and 180,000 from Mississippi State representatives, and in return, Cam Newton would enroll at their school. Rogers also told Mississippi State reps that if no money was provided, Newton would be looking to commit elsewhere. So as a result of the investigation, Newton was thereby deemed ineligible on two separate occasions, as the NCAA stated that he had violated bylaws 12.3.1 and 12.3.3, which asks if Rogers was acting as an agent for Newton with the pay-for-play idea, or as a scholarship agent who was in contact with various schools. And obviously, amateurs can't have an agent, so that would have been a breach of amateur status, and obviously would have required Newton to turn pro. While Newton's ineligibility was implemented due to the uncertainty of the case, Auburn University later accomplished in getting Newton reinstated. Auburn argued that Newton had not been aware of Rogers and Cecil's schemes. He had not signed on with Rogers as a client, thus keeping his amateur status intact, had received no incentives from Rogers, and did not provide Rogers with payment during the recruitment process, all of which would have jeopardized his amateur status. So should we pay or not pay student athletes? The decade-old question. So I'll be looking at both sides, even though I'm for paying student athletes. So first, the pros. It allows a way for student athletes to support their families back home. Athletes may stay longer at school instead of turning pro early. Many athletes, especially in basketball, go implement the one and done rule. They turn pro after their freshman year because of that money, and because they want to maximize their star marketability, if you will. But if they are paid, they might stay longer and develop their skills. Some athletes, mainly basketball players, leave too early, and their skills are not developed, and they don't find success in the NBA. But they make that jump. They rush to make that jump to the pros because of the financial situation. They know that they'll be compensated immediately, even if they're not a great player, through sponsorships and small contracts. If they're not a top pick, but if athletes are paid by the NCAA and by schools, they might stay longer, and thus develop their skills better and have a better chance of success in the pros. Also, the probability of corruption brought on by outside factors is lessened. So, like with the Cam Newton case, that would probably not have happened if students were being paid. Again, they were asking for a huge amount of money, so maybe it would have. But for the majority, none of these athletes selling their autographs for money or things like that would be happening, because they would be getting compensated. And simply, paying college athletes is what they deserve after bringing in huge amounts of revenue each season for their respective schools, while putting their bodies on the line, while putting their mental stability and mental health on the line. Playing sports is not easy. Playing sports competitively at the highest level is definitely not easy. So it takes a toll, and they should be rewarded for that. So the cons. These athletes are still young and amateurs in their sport. The money might go to their head, and thus they could become fiscally irresponsible. This is a very fair point, but I think a way to combat this would be to hold some sort of financial advisor class in which a school would get a financial advisor from one of the prominent companies, and talk about managing their finances responsibly. And I think this would be a great training and learning experience for these athletes. The compensation scale between athletes might have to differ based on the sport/athlete, and this could cause civil problems within the school. This is definitely probably the most common con Not all sports generate the same amount of revenue because some sports are obviously popular. Football obviously brings in more money than wrestling, and um, each athlete um, it has a different value. A football player, the starting quarterback of the football team, has a greater value than a swimmer on the swim team. So basically in the end, each athlete would be compensated on how much they're worth to the university, how much value they have in that as a member of that sports program. So obviously the pay scale will be different, but all I can say to that is nobody was getting any money before. So if pay for play was implemented, you're still getting paid. It's not the same amount, obviously, but you have to understand that um, uh, it's it's a decision based on the amount of value each specific sports program brings to the university, and you just have to go by that. It also could lead to an immense decrease in class attendance rates among student athletes. So most athletes are wary of going to class anyways, especially those who know they're going to be turning pro, so they don't really feel the need to be in class because they're not really going to get a degree. But um, I feel like coaches would implement a uh, attendance requirement for class to enable them to play in games. And athletes still need to hold a specific GPA to be eligible to play in games. So if that drops because of attendance, then that will be a problem, and they'll be um, reprimanded for that. So a fail safe like that is already in the book. So I think it'll be fine. There's also the potential loss of competitive spirit with a money mindset taking center stage. I don't really believe this at all. Um, if a money mindset was took away from competitiveness, um, then that's just doesn't make any sense. The pro athletes get paid by the millions every year. Their hunger for competitiveness does not dissolve. Kobe Bryant, one of the highest paid players in the NBA history, highest paid Laker of all time, and he was one of the most competitive, uh, dedicated players in the NBA, and not just in the NBA, in all sports. He's had an immense work ethic. So I don't think definitely money mindset will not be taking center stage. This competitive spirit will still definitely be intact. So my compensation proposal plan is as such. First, analyze how much each sport brings in revenue for a specific school. Determine how much value players from each sport hold, so how much value they add um, to the total revenue of of the athletics department of that school. Construct a pay scale that is designed so as the players are paid according to how valuable they are to school's athletic program. So obviously, the starting quarterback of University of Alabama, which right now is Tua Tagovailoa, would obviously get a higher um, uh, pay because of the stature of the football program at Alabama versus um, swimmer Jack Conger at the University of Texas, who might get a much lesser pay because um, swimming is really not on par with football in terms of value and popularity. Would advise to put a cap on pay to prevent unrealistic expectations. So we don't have athletes demanding $200,000 a year. Gotta. I understand the need to pay athletes, and we will, but there also needs to be a realistic expectation. This isn't the NBA or NFL. This is still amateur. This is not the pros yet, and this is not a salary for to be used 100% as disposable income. It is a salary. We're giving this to you to make your lifestyle easier at college. not for you to just spend it all and enjoy yourself. It's for basic necessities while also treating yourself here and there. Um, there will also be disputes on the different pay rates, as I said, but that will just have to be an issue you will have to embrace. Can't really do anything about that. Make the pay a monthly allowance in which they get paid the first Monday of each month. And lastly, do a budget analysis of how paying the student athletes will alter the school's financial statements. So obviously, this would classify under expenses. So we would have to do an analysis of just how big that expense is and how we can combat that. So yeah, that's my presentation. This is obviously a very in-depth topic. I can go on for a long time, but this presentation was just highlighting the important parts. But obviously my report will go more in depth, so feel free to check that out when it's due next week. But for now, yeah, if you guys have any thoughts or comments or questions, please reach out. But yeah, student athletes definitely need to be paid, and I hope we can get someone close to that in the near future. So thank you for listening to this presentation, and have a good day.